to tell. It's gonna be a great Noel. It's the Advent Calendar House. Muppets, Batman, Smurfs, and even Garfield's Halloween. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane. Frosty, Rudolph, and a bunch you've probably never seen. It's Mike and pals that come to entertain. Turn the knob and lift the latch for fun and laughs that can't be matched. And just beware the icy patch. It's the Advent Calendar House.
Welcome to the Advent Calendar House, the podcast that respects you enough to not demand that you quit your job and have my baby. It'll make sense. No, it won't. Nothing on this particular episode makes sense, and that is what makes it fun. So join us as we set a course for 1982 aboard the Pacific Princess for a very merry episode of The Love Boat. This is the Christmas Presents.
Love, exciting and new. Come aboard, we're expecting you.
I am mysterious stranger inserting himself into other people's conversations while you're trapped on a boat at sea with no escape, Mike Westfall. And joining me is our ship's official. I already forget what the title is, so I'll just call him Guy in charge of decorating the tree. It's William Bruce West. Hello, Will.
Hey, I'm doing my Ted Lange points that nobody can see.
Thank you for that. That was just for us. And gifted sculptor slash petty thief with a heart of gold and a secret nativity scene to match. It's Guy Hutchinson. Hey, Guy.
This is my favorite podcast, so I am so glad to be back.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Welcome aboard. Guy, you had mentioned this episode to me. I had never watched it or any of The Love Boat until now. So, was this a Christmas episode you knew about or one you watched fairly recently?
Well, so we've talked before, but I am obsessed with watching Christmas specials. When we get the day after Halloween, I start watching them, and I love episodes like this where it's an episode of The Love Boat, which I may go 10 years without seeing an episode of The Love Boat except for Christmas time. So this is one I probably watched maybe 10 to 15 years ago for the first time, but I've since watched it probably every third or fourth Christmas. So
wow.
It's one of my favorites. It's ridiculous, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but when I told you about it, I literally told you about the last shot of this episode and was like, this is why we have to do this. This is why we have to talk about this.
And I was immediately sold from there. Will, what is your history with The Love Boat?
I didn't really watch it growing up. It was one of those, like, I knew it existed. You'd see it on, like, the cover of TV Guide, but, like, it wasn't, because I always thought it was like a serious show. Like,
yeah,
if you ask me, like, Love Boat and Moonlighting were basically the same thing, you know? Like, so then it was recently at work, I just needed background noise, and I discovered Pluto TV, and I just had it on in the background. Like, I burned through the Stargate franchise, and I was like, okay, what's next? And then there was Love Boat, because that's a natural segue.
Sure.
And I just kind of loved it because I love TV of that era, but I also love, it's kind of like, you know, every now and then they would get two actors who worked together before. So it's like they're trying to rekindle that magic, but you got to remember, like, they're not Jack and Chrissy, they're Roger and Lisa, but it's still like, you know what I mean? Like, I love those, like, are they going to slip into character? Is something going to happen here? So, like, I love that. It's the comedic battle of the network stars, you know.
Wow.
Like, that's
yeah, you're
why,
right.
like, we don't have that anymore. I love TV synergy things. I've always said that, like, I love, like, when networks do those promos that make it look like everybody's friends. Yes. You know, like the WB used to do that. Like, they were all just young and pretty playing poker on the back lot, and Michigan J would dance by. Like, I love fake synergy.
Yeah.
So The Love Boat was that to me.
Oh, that's something we've lost.
I agree with you so much, Will. The Love Boat, I also thought as a kid it would have been a much mushier, lovey-dovey show than it is. And so I was like, well, I don't want to watch. I don't want to kissing for an hour. I can't watch that.
Is this a kissing boat?
Yeah, and I mean, it's for anybody that hasn't seen The Love Boat as a concept. It was a 1 hour show. It was basically a sitcom. They would have multiple plots, and usually when you watch these as a kid, in that time period, there would be one plot that was kind of geared a little bit more towards the kids, one towards grandma, and one towards mom and dad. And then you would just kind of weave in and out of these plots.
Yeah, and that's the case here, but this one's a little different because most episodes of The Love Boat have multiple titles for each intertwining story happening that week. This one only has a single title, The Christmas Presents, which is like a fourth plot that's weaving in and out. So maybe that's why, but like I said, this was my first Love Boat experience watching it for this podcast. It was a blind spot in my TV watching for similar reasons. I thought it was a serious show, so I didn't think anything of it. My only knowledge of The Love Boat as a child was Sesame Street did a parody of it where Ernie's on the boat telling everybody on the boat, I love this boat. And everyone else just is enthusiastically concurring, I love this boat too.
Well, it's sad that this is your introduction because while it has a lot of familiar Christmas special tropes, it's a horrible episode of The Love Boat. Like when it was over, I felt that the crew is sidelined. Like normally the crew are more involved. Like in this episode, it's really just like decorating the tree. But other than that, they're just kind of like set dressing. And that was kind of sad because normally you've got Isaac is doing more than just trying to call his mom. Gopher's usually doing something. There's usually a passenger who's in love with Julie and she considers leaving the boat behind. Like these are the things that happen. And I just felt like the crew, besides Doc,
yeah,
they're an afterthought in this episode.
But the crazy thing is, even Doc performing a medical miracle is like an afterthought in this. Like usually you do get Doc doing some kind of almost every cruise, apparently something terrible happens to somebody but usually the crew has to play matchmaker. They have to do a lot of things that Mickey Rooney does in this, and mainly Mickey Rooney kind of dominates the episode and the plot, which a lot of what he did probably would have been stuff that the crew would have been doing. But yeah, the decorating the tree is like the biggest crisis that the crew has throughout this episode.
Oh, well, now I'm intrigued to watch more later. I know there are other Christmas episodes of this that I've seen listed, but this one is the only one that has just the single title. So The Christmas Presents premiered December 18th, 1982, a Saturday night on ABC, followed immediately by Perry Como's Christmas in Paris. What a night of television. This episode was written by David and Michelle Swift. David also wrote and directed the original Parent Trap movie, along with Pollyanna and How to Succeed in Business Without Even Trying. And the show setting, the Pacific Princess, was a real cruise ship. And Guy, you were telling me that I didn't realize how much of this show was actually shot on the ship.
Yeah, when they would shoot The Love Boat, one of the things was that they would bring these stars out on a cruise for a few days. So that was one of the ways they could secure all these guests. They would shoot some of it on a soundstage, but a lot of it they would shoot on the actual cruise ship. And that was a real cruise ship. And it was in service until I want to say maybe 8 years ago. And then it was finally scrapped. But yeah, it was a real ship.
Yeah. So it was owned and operated by Princess Cruises from 1975 to 2002. After which it bounced around other owners. One time it got seized by the Italian Coast Guard due to an outstanding debt. But it was completely dismantled by 2014, so it is gone forever.
Yeah, and here's the thing. This series, not this episode, but this series was responsible for an amazing uptick in the cruise industry.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's weird about this show too? And I think it kind of kicks in around season 7, where if you compare to like Star Trek, they're always on the Enterprise. They're all like, if they're together, it's the Enterprise. It's not another ship. But with Love Boat, it's almost like whatever ship the cruise is on is almost like deputized as a love boat because their general route is to Acapulco. But there's like a 5-parter or something where they go up to like Alaska, and it's still the Love Boat. Like they've been transferred to a different ship. It's a different route. It's just temporary. But like again, Julie's thinking of leaving it all behind and marrying this guy up in Canada. And it's still the Love Boat. But it's like you're not on your ship. Like it's just wherever they happen to be is the Love Boat at that point in time.
It's like Air Force One.
Air Force One, exactly. Love Force One.
Love
we need
Force
to pitch
One.
that somewhere.
So if you want to watch this, it's available in a few places. I was able to watch it on Paramount Plus without a subscription. Now, on there and everywhere else this episode is listed, it's labeled Season 6, Episode 13. But it's also available on Pluto TV, but it's Episode 11 of Season 6 on there, which, weird, but whatever. It might be a production order versus broadcast order thing.
It also may be there were a few double episodes that were then released as so it may be a numbering issue with syndication versus the first run.
Yeah, I did see a few of those when I was looking through the wiki there. So yeah, that's probably it. Guy, you also found this episode on Facebook.
Yeah, and somebody had stuck it on Facebook. And so I have seen this numerous times. I needed to go over, and there were a few things that I was like, I want to make sure I have, detailed notes for this important broadcast. And so I went back and watched. Somebody had put it on Facebook, but the audio was not synced at all, which actually made it far more interesting because you would hear the scene about a minute and a half before it happened. I mean, the audio was out of sync from the beginning, but it got worse so it was, so by the end you were hearing, like you were listening into the future. It was great.
Oh, that's trippy. Well, I'll put that link in the show notes as well. That's going to be interesting. Multiple places you can watch this. But let's shove off. We open aboard our ship as some crewmen hang a big banner that reads, "Have a Merry Christmas Cruise," and some more carry what looks like a pretty big Christmas tree on board with the help of Gopher, the ship's yeoman purser, which I had to look that up.
I mean, that's something everybody only knows from the Love Boat.
Yeah.
That is, there's a couple things I was thinking as this starts out. So they've got this banner that is just for the people walking on. Like once they've walked on, they throw the banner away. The banner has no other purpose. And this tree cost $125, which they talk about what a ripoff this tree was. And this tree is enormous.
Yeah, I did the inflation math there. Because 120, I have 120 written down, but it's still high end for a live tree. But 120 in 1982 would be about just under $400 in 2024. So that's a hefty, expensive tree. Where was I? Oh, yeoman purser. Basically, Gopher's both in charge of anything money related and also head of what you might call guest services.
It's a magnificent tree, Gopher. Good choice.
Thank you, sir. Cost a little bit more than we figured, though. $120.
And he is played by Fred Grandy, who went on to be a U.S. congressman from Iowa. Then he was president and CEO of Goodwill until the late 90s. He still acts, too. He had a recurring role on The Mindy Project because his son Charlie Grandy is a frequent collaborator with Mindy Kaling. They co-created Velma together.
He's not going to put that on his resume.
No, he's not. They tried. Well, that price of $120 does not sit well with the ship's bartender, Isaac Washington, played by Ted Lange.
You gotta be kidding, $120 for this tree?
Hey, trees don't grow on trees,
Who is absolutely best known from this, but I remember him showing up in an episode of Family Matters as Carl's estranged brother. And he was on season 4 of Celebrity Fit Club.
I would say that he was the Fonzie of the Love Boat. He was the Urkel.
Yeah.
He was the breakout character. He was definitely the one that I knew of as a kid by name.
Yeah, he's definitely like he's the cool guy because
Right.
like back
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, the black guy, he's gonna dance, he's gonna be the party guy, that kind of deal. But it was also sad because you knew he wasn't getting a love interest unless there was a black actress guest star.
Oh dear,
Because
yeah.
that's how TV worked back then, it's like Diane Carroll. Well, guess Isaac's going on a date this week.
Hey, all right.
But that was how it was. But he was the fun guy. You very rarely got serious episodes with Isaac.
Right.
Sometimes maybe he would fall in love with a woman and she's like a single mom and he realizes like, oh, I'm going to help her take care of this kid. But then she ultimately decides she wants to do it on her own and he needs the bar and the sea, things like that. But
Okay.
it never got too heavy with Isaac.
Right.
And then we have our captain, Captain Steubing, played by Gavin McLeod.
You're the secretary of the treasury
Man,
all of a sudden. What do you know?
Christmas. Peace on Earth includes ships, too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, I've mentioned him on the podcast before. He had a brief cameo in that Pat Boone special we watched, Guy.
Oh, he did indeed. He was obviously a giant star. The thing about this era, so this is early 80s, if you were a cast member on a network show, like if you were Larry on Three's Company, you could go into any restaurant anywhere in the country and everyone knew who you were.
Yeah.
It was such a different era because there were so many less shows to watch. So, when they did the guest stars for this show, we'll get to them, they were all, actors and actresses who had appeared on television shows who by today's standards probably wouldn't be household names. But back then, absolutely, because everybody that was on TV was a household name.
Yeah. I mean, it's all people re-recognize because for that very reason. There's just fewer channels to watch.
And you had that distinction back then where TV actors didn't do movies and movie actors didn't do TV. Like now, if there's a check, they'll do it.
Yes.
It might be a prestige miniseries on streaming or something.
Right.
But we don't have those divisions anymore.
No, that is a relic of the past. But here the captain has to break up an argument between the other two over the cost of the tree by simply reminding them it's Christmas. Peace on Earth includes ships too. So he tells the two to finish decorating the ship and save the tree for last. But then we immediately skip all that and cut to passengers boarding their Christmas cruise. And as they do, they're greeted with a friendly Merry Christmas by Mickey Rooney.
Merry Christmas.
Yes. This was, so Mickey is one of my favorite actors, and it was great to see him in here. A crazy character name, Dominicus Angelinus. I believe it's like Dominican Angel or whatever. I don't know that it's that deep of a pun or anything.
No.
But he's so great. I actually, when I was watching it, I was like, is he playing somebody's relative? But he's not. And he's a great character in this. He's the reason that this is a holiday show.
Yeah. He's been Santa before. It's been a while. That was the last time we encountered him on this podcast, was for Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And he's wearing this red and green plaid blazer over a dark green sweater vest. Very festive and formal. It's a good look for him. And I think he's just looking for someone to talk to here. He approaches one guy standing in the lobby and asks, "Isn't it a wonderful day to celebrate the holiday?" And the man sourly replies,
That's a matter of opinion.
and he turns around and it's Donny Osmond.
With a beard.
Sporting a beard.
It's evil Donny Osmond.
That's what I was thinking. See, it's interesting. You mentioned him talking to everybody. It reminded me of the scene in the movie Unbreakable, where Bruce Willis has to go to Grand Central Station put his arms out and touch people to see if anybody needs help. I feel like that's what's going on. He's talking to people because he wants to figure out who needs his help for this on this mission.
That's it. Yeah, Bruce Willis in the station. You're absolutely right. Donny Osmond has come up on the podcast before. He was on Johnny Bravo's Christmas special as himself.
Yeah, he also, Donny and Marie did multiple Christmas specials, and they're all interchangeable. They're all terrible, and they're all excellent.
This is his third appearance on the Love Boat. and he is clearly annoyed about something, and another crew member asks if he can help.
Excuse me, may I help you?
You can find my wife. That'll help.
This is the ship's doctor, Adam Bricker, played by Bernie Kopell, whom I know best as the villainous Ludwig von Siegfried from Get Smart.
Oh, yeah.
But Donnie, well, in this, his name is Jim. Jim Markham is his character's name. Explains his wife is late. It's their first vacation together in 3 years, and, quote, you'd think the woman could be on time just once. Oh, word?
This is an interesting dynamic too, because she's only a few minutes behind him, like if that, so I don't know how he missed her getting on the boat, but I also like that she was working like a minute later than him. So she showed up, they took separate cars. I mean, everything about this seems odd.
Very weird. He just continues, don't ever marry a woman with a career. She's married to her job, and he walks off. But as luck or efficient editing would have it, here comes the wife, Lori, and it's Marcia Brady herself, Maureen McCormick.
Hi, darling. I'm sorry I'm late, but there was a last-minute emergency.
Yes, indeed. My goodness. 1982, Maureen McCormick.
Yeah. This is her 6th voyage on the Love Boat. Maureen's, not her character's, that we know of. But she's very apologetic here, gives her husband a hug, explains there was a last-minute emergency at work. We don't know yet what she does for a career. We'll find out later, but Donnie's not in the forgiving mood. He complains it's always an emergency, but she keeps her cool and explains she's here now, let's enjoy our vacation, and they both go to check in as Donnie gets in one more jab with, you think you can survive a whole trip without the phone ringing? And kids, this is before cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
They would have brought out a corded phone.
Right.
Like, ma'am, phone call for you.
Yeah, you got to go to the desk for that.
Yeah, well, if you're in the restaurant, though, they'll bring it to the table. I believe they have some giant cord in the old days. But, like on a cruise today, she could get her phone service, but she'd have to pay like $40 a day or whatever the rate is.
Yeah.
Can I just point out, though, like we're looking at it like in hindsight, but like at the time, this was a double issue of Tiger Beat. That's the caliber of what's going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've got Donny Osmond and Marcia Brady at her finest on this Love Boat episode.
I mean, this is what was so great about this show. You were seeing a mashup of TV characters that you loved, and you're putting them together in ways, this is a young kid playing with his G.I. Joe figures and his He-Man figures at the same time. You're getting this crossover that we never knew we needed.
This is blowing people's minds as this is airing in 1982. Well, we head to Gopher at the front desk now as 2 more passengers check in. The first introduces himself as Charles Baker Dobbs, and it's Keenan Wynn.
Charles Baker Dobbs, you the head man here?
Yes, but nobody's had the nerve to tell the captain yet. Okay, let's see. Midland Commercial Enterprises.
Manufacturing. We do novelties and holiday gifts.
I've definitely talked about him. He was the Winter Warlock.
Yeah, a legendary actor.
Yeah. We got him and Mickey Rooney on board. Let's see if Santa can melt his icy heart again. Joining Mr. Dobbs is his bumbling assistant, Henry Bemis, played by Henry Gibson.
Sir, if you'd like someone to help you with
Oh,
that.
please.
No, Henry.
I've talked to him before on 2 different Halloween specials. He was in the Halloween That Almost Wasn't as Igor, and in Halloween is Grinch Night, he sings a song as the Grinch's dog, Max.
Oh, wow. Well, I always think of Henry Gibson as the guy who owned the Biodome in the movie Biodome.
Oh, wow.
I love that movie so much.
I do too.
How did I forget he was in Biodome?
Everyone's in Biodome. Like Kylie
Minogue, yeah.
Petravon Kant. I love that movie.
Oh,
But
wow.
like, Henry Gibson is almost like Teller before Teller.
Yes.
Yeah.
He can do so much with his face. Like he doesn't, like he doesn't even talk a lot here.
No.
But he's so expressive. It's like he and Captain Steubing have like the battle of the blue eyes in this episode. Because they both have like a gorgeous set of eyes. And that's what like took my attention watching this.
Yeah. It's that Technicolor blue eyes, too, that you're seeing. Because they got the good cut.
Right.
Henry is struggling with carrying a suitcase and making a big show of it, and he even pleads for assistance, but Dobbs insists, no, we'll take it ourselves. And they make it about 2 steps before Mickey Rooney walks over and greets them with an enthusiastic Merry Christmas, which makes Henry jump and drop a suitcase out of which spills a bunch of solid gold bars. At least that's what it looks like, but Dobbs says, no, they're paperweights. See, Henry? He can't tell the difference. So Henry scrambles to put back all the paperweights and again struggles to lift the suitcase and be on their way.
This reminds me, by the way, that's a go-to line when you have something very expensive, but you don't want people to know it. And in Home Alone, there's the moment where she's negotiating to try to get try to buy the ticket from the lady at the airport, and the lady looks at her watch and she goes, "Is that real?" And she's like, "No, but who can tell?" And I was like, yeah, it reminded me when I saw these gold bars. Same thing.
Yeah. Well, next we see the captain along with our cruise director, Julie, welcoming aboard a couple of nuns with some young members of the Good Shepherd Boys Choir who are on their way home to Acapulco after having to cut their tour short and getting stranded. But the cruise just so happened to get enough last-minute cancellations for the crew to accommodate the choir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was perfect timing. Now, the one of the nuns is played by Jan Rooney, who was Mickey Rooney's wife. They had married about 4 years before. This was, I think, Mickey Rooney's 7th wife, if I remember correctly. Eighth wife.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Jan, I got to meet Mickey Rooney and Jan very briefly at where you paid, $80 or whatever to meet Mickey Rooney. But it was always sold as Meet Mickey and Jan Rooney. And so that way she could keep half of his income for his autograph sales. And I always found that kind of shady. And after he passed away, there seemed to be a lot of tension in that family. So I don't know. He certainly seemed to have a wonderful relationship with her, but I don't know how well it ended. I think that a lot of times with celebrities in their later years, things, a lot of people grabbing at you, trying to get your, squeeze whatever they can out of you.
Oh dear.
They were separated at the time of his death.
Okay.
And then it got, as you said, gets kind of complicated.
Yeah, I know John Amos passed away not that long ago, and he had a rather similar thing where
Sure did. I read about, I was just telling my mom about that the week before we found out he passed. And then it's like, well, this is about to get messy.
Oh boy.
So this is the Good Shepherd Boys Choir. I've heard a lot about you.
It was so nice of you to make the passage home available for us and our boys. Why, being stranded here without funds, I don't know what we would have done.
Sister Bernadette, don't go on so. Think how fortunate we were. The 3 cabins became available so suddenly.
Well, Julie is played by Lauren Tweez, who mainly does voiceover and radio commercials nowadays. If you ever watched a very, very short-lived Hanna-Barbera cartoon called Sky Commanders, she voiced Red, a woman with a thick Irish accent on that show. But I noticed quite a few of her voice credits on IMDb were computer games by Humongous Entertainment. They made Putt Putt and Freddy Fish. And according to Wikipedia, Julie Tweez later went to culinary school with, to quote, become a cheese specialist and works as a sous chef for a catering company in Seattle. Follow your dreams, I guess.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to be a cheese specialist, it's the Love Boat alum.
There it is, yeah. We talked about Jan Rooney. The other nun, Sister Regina, is played by our final billed guest star, Teresa Wright, who is probably best known from the Hitchcock film Shadow of a Doubt. She won 1942's Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Mrs. Miniver. I know her best as Lou Gehrig's wife in Pride of the Yankees.
Oh, wow.
Well, Captain Steubing asks if the boys would mind performing during the cruise, and the sisters said they'd love to, but their lead singer, Little Rodrigo, is sick. And I also have a credit for Rodrigo. His name is Alejandro Garay. Not a lot of acting credits, mostly additional voices on some cartoons, including It's Punky Brewster, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, and The Puppy's Further Adventures. Then he went on an episode of the A-Team where he's a kid on a remote island who asks the A-Team to get rid of some drug pushers.
How did he contact them? That's a different episode.
Yeah, I don't know. He has a really, really good walkie-talkie. But here comes Mickey Rooney listening in on someone else's conversation and asks the captain if there's a nurse on board who might be able to help Rodrigo. And the captain says he can have the doctor take a look. So as the choir group heads to their rooms, Mickey Rooney stays behind, and Captain Stubing asks him, wait, you're not with them? And here's where he introduces himself. His name is Angelorum Dominicus. Angelorum.
I love it. I love that name. I think it's the best.
It's, yeah, and like you said, there's nothing much to it. It's complete foreshadowing. It's like a bad Harry Potter name. Hey, kids, meet your new professor, Wolfie McWolfface.
Hope he doesn't turn into a wolf.
Okay, Julie takes a look at her passenger list, doesn't see an Angelorum Dominicus on there. It's not on Gopher's list either, so the captain asks to take a look, and as he does, a sudden gust of wind blows in from out of nowhere, sending the paper flying out of Captain Stubing's hand. And Mr. Dominicus picks it up, hands it back to the captain, and would you look at that? There's his name right there. How could you miss that?
Yeah, and for those who have not seen this, he is doing the trope of waving his fingers to make magical things happen throughout this episode in the most cartoonish way possible. It's wonderful.
He really is. But Angelorum is officially welcomed aboard, and he deadpans his next line.
Thank you. You're all very nice. Very nice. Not very observant, but very nice.
And with that, the captain sends Julie and Gopher to trim the tree, and Julie asks Gopher, where are the decorations? But Gopher replies, I was in charge of getting the tree. You were supposed to get the decorations. And they go back and forth between that. So now we have a conundrum where you have a beautiful tree that's bare and no decorations on board. But we'll get back to that later. Right now, we set sail into the night and cut to the following afternoon, where Mr. Dobbs greets Sister Regina in the hallway, and they make small talk before Dobbs continues down the hall and knocks on Henry's room, where inside we see he's barricaded with a chair. Because we see, as Dobbs enters, shuts the door and re-barricades it with the chair, that Henry is molding these gold bars that Dobbs swore weren't real gold bars, but surprise, they're totally real gold bars, into little sombrero shapes.
So this is fascinating to me. So Mickey Rooney is magic, but Henry Gibson's character is not magic, yet he's able to do sculpting work in a cruise cabin that is phenomenal. And this is a 1980s cruise cabin, by the way. And I even the sombreros that he has, I'm like, how is he doing this? Like, how is this being done? But boy, when we get to what happens later, I cry foul. This is not possible.
Nope.
Well, the fumes mixed with all that 80s lead paint too.
Oh,
yeah, he's smelting like sombreros I just don't buy it. But they look great. I don't know the plan for the golden sombreros. My guess is, by the way, if we look, that was probably a novelty that people could purchase somewhere, because I don't think the prop shop made that. I feel like that's an off-the-shelf. I feel like this is an off-the-shelf nativity that we're going to see later.
Yeah.
And these were off-the-shelf gold sombreros you could probably get. They were probably ashtrays.
At the airport.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, we forgot grandma.
Oh, dear. Yoink. So these two are smuggling this gold into Mexico, and now that Dobbs has learned from Sister Regina that she's headed there to get home, he tells Henry their problem is solved. Two little nuns are unknowingly going to transport their gold figurines home for Christmas. Figurines, Henry says? We're making sombreros. Not anymore, Dobbs tells him to melt down those beautiful sombreros he probably spent all night making. And now he's got to make a nativity scene instead. because he figures Customs isn't going to think twice about a nativity scene being brought in by 2 nuns and a group of orphan children. Well, that leaves Henry with one question.
How are we going to get the gold back?
Will you trust me, Henry? Just trust me.
And then we cut to Angelorum at the door, loudly clearing his throat. Wait a minute, how'd he open the door? They just barricaded it with the chair. Easy does it, Love Boat. Any other show would have left a little bit of mystery as to, was that really an angel or Santa or whoever? Not the Love Boat.
Yeah, no, normally this would be one where it builds slowly, and then at the end you're like, could that really have been, because usually you're building to it Santa, but man, this one, they beat you over the head. If you don't know that he's magical by the end of the opening sequence, they make sure you do at the beginning of every other scene he's in.
Yeah.
He really kind of and I looked at it from a modern lens of he overstepped his bounds almost immediately. It was a different time, but the minute he was well, I'm sure there's a nurse on board who could look at the little boy. That moment, I'm like, who are you?
Who are you? Right.
Okay, Grandpa, we got this. They pay us to take care of this. We got this. And then once they saw him in the same outfit on day 3, somebody's got to start asking questions.
Got a whole suitcase full of the same outfit. It's like every cartoon character's closet. But Angelorum tells Dobbs, oh, hey, your door was ajar. No, it wasn't. But Dobbs politely but impatiently says, if you'll excuse us. And this guy says, by the way, if you care to converse anytime in the near future, please be sure to call me and I'll be happy to be available for you. What? I know what you are, but who are you to these people? You don't work on this ship. This is so weird.
They give him a lot of leeway.
They do.
The show is goofy enough that it pushes it too far. Love Boat would have allowed this to happen. Even in the subtle, you build, and then you were saying at the end, it's kind of was that kindly old man homeless, or was he really the son of God? That's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah,
not the bewitched finger.
No. My thought at this point was that I wondered if he was trying to earn his wings like Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
And he's scoping out everybody on that boat. Anybody at all.
Yeah, I kind of, and maybe this is not true, but I would love to get a behind the scenes on this particular episode, because I feel almost like Mickey Rooney showed up and his agent was like, he needs more scenes. You need to give Mickey more scenes. Mickey needs to be in every scene.
I would not be surprised if that is the reason this turned out the way it did.
But then that makes you wonder what was the original plan for it.
Because
him being in every scene is taking up, there's chewing the scenery, and then there's just devouring and throwing it up behind the dumpster. And that's what he did.
It's so true.
Well, and here it's time for him to stroll down to the bar where Isaac the bartender is trying to call his mother, who lives in Oakland, to wish her a Merry Christmas. But he says the guy in the ship's radio room is incompetent. And Angelorum remarks, in my organization, we have a few of those too. Big talk from a guy with no wings yet. Doc's down here too, in the shortest shorts and the longest socks. 1982.
That was such an 80s thing, man. Your shorts would be so short that your tighty whities would stick out a little bit on the sides of your shorts. And that was total, and your socks would compensate. They would compensate for it.
Well, up walk Julie and Gopher, still arguing with each other about who forgot to get the Christmas tree decorations, and Isaac tells them both, stop bickering and just tell the captain they forgot. He'll fire you, and everything will be all settled. And what timing! Here comes Captain Steubing now, wondering why those two aren't decorating the tree. And Gopher takes a couple of straws and says, oh, we were just about to draw straws to see who would take care of the tinsel. So now they have lied to the captain's face. And Doc asks, what are they going to do now? And they both shrug. And Angelorum just happens to be sitting here.
Well, you better do something. A tree without decorations is a No.
A Christmas tree without decorations is a no-no. And he walks away. He got so upset.
And nobody was like, what is up with that old man?
No.
He's kind of like the jerkiest angel that ever existed. He's like 90% angel, but 10% just really a pain in the neck.
You better put decorations on that tree. I'm sitting here thinking, the angel's going to magically light up the tree, but no, he got offended by the idea of a naked Christmas tree that he had to walk away from the conversation. Gopher says when the ship stops that night at the port of Ensenada, Mexico, he'll go out and buy all new ornaments. So then we follow Angelorum over to check on Rodrigo, the little boy with the throat, who's sulking next to the pool while all his friends are swimming, fully clothed with a scarf around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
As was the custom of the time.
Well, he's got a sore throat.
His throat hurts, so he needs a scarf, and he can't go swimming. So he needs to sit by the pool so he can feel ultimately very bad that he doesn't get to swim.
Right. Angelorum tells him, I'm sure you can think of something to smile about. And right as he says that, a beach ball hits him on the head, hits Angelorum on the head.
Yeah.
Which gets a laugh out of Rodrigo. Not exactly how I'd use my powers for good if I had any, but fine. We then shift our focus to Maureen McCormick and Donny Osmond, the unhappy couple. And I've got to shout out Donny's yellow Lacoste polo with the crocodile.
Yeah, and this was the era of that. This was when Lacoste had done their cross promotion with Izod, and those shirts were everywhere. And I will tell you, when I was a kid, we went to the flea market and we bought just fake knockoff alligator patches, which then my dad sewed onto our shirts.
I remember, yeah.
So we would go to JCPenney and buy just regular polo style shirts, and then he would sew the alligators onto them.
You know what? We had those too. I remember them being patches. I remember just seeing a bunch of patches by themselves. Wow.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, though, that Donny Osmond is a very complex character, though, in that, the gender roles have been reversed for one thing, because normally you have it would be the wife complaining that the husband's the workaholic and she wants to start the family and that kind of thing. And they've put that on Donny's character this time, but also in doing so, they've Donny is also made up to be someone you typically don't like. He is kind of like the bad yuppie, we're talking about with the Lacoste and everything. So it's you understand his problems, but at the same time, you're but I don't really like the cut of your jib. So then it's kind of you're really conflicted because you get that he wants a wife and they're distant, they're estranged, but he's not a great guy, baby.
Right. What I wrote down about this was that they were both kind of complex characters, and it wasn't like you expected it. I expected it to be more cut and dry when I paid close attention to it, that, he's the bad guy, she's the good one. And then I was like, you know what? He still seems to love her. He seems pretty into her. He just thinks she works too hard, and we'll see how that wraps up. And I thought that the way that they wrap it up when we get there was interesting as well. I thought everything about their relationship was kind of, I don't know if it was deeper than I expected, but it at least went in directions I wasn't expecting.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely. The resolution is kind of in a way, it's a letdown, but also you're that's how that would happen.
You know what? Yeah.
That's life. That's how that's marriage,
Yep.
But it's very, because again, we haven't really talked about what she does, but you, in the beginning, you think she's business woman, busy business woman who's busy with business, right. And she's got to buy, sell, and then you find out her job, and you're really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me.
No, it was not you. We'll get there later. Okay, so their names are Lori and Jim, are their character names. Lori is wondering, as we all are, why Jim is so upset that she continues to have a career. He insists she doesn't have to work, and they don't need the extra money. But Lori just wants to enjoy the vacation right now without talking about it. And Jim barks back, "This is the first time I've had you long enough to even bring it up." Being in a relationship when both parties have different work schedules is tough. I've been there in the past. But the difference there was we both needed the jobs. So while I don't have a dog in this fight, I still think it's a dumb thing to fight about. She did make time for him. They're on a boat together for Christmas.
The resentment had been building though, and this was like while it's a vacation to her, it's a cornering to him. Like, I finally got you in one place where you're gonna get a piece of my mind.
Mike, look, if the people don't fight on the Love Boat, we don't get to see when they. There is no other area they can go to and fight during the Love Boat episode.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Love Boat needs reconciliation. That arc needs to happen. If they don't kiss and make up, what are we doing here?
Right.
But here comes Angelora butting into another private conversation. Introduces himself to Lori, who invites him to sit down. Listen, I've never been on a cruise. Have y'all?
No.
I have, yes.
Okay. Do people just walk up to your table and try to make new friends like that?
I mean, no, not on the cruise. Thank God.
Okay, good, because this seems awful.
No, yeah, thank God they don't. Now, I do believe, though, on some cruises, particularly if you're cruising with just couples, they do seat you with other people, and so they kind of want this to happen, but I don't think you're inviting the Mickey Rooney of the ship over to your table. Although maybe she was just like, you know what, we'll stop fighting if you sit down.
Yeah, here we go. Thank you, change of subject. Have a seat. I will say, if I'm out somewhere and you recognize me, say hi. That would be delightful if anyone recognized me anywhere. That'll never happen. But if you're some stranger on a cruise ship, leave me alone. And just to make things even more awkward, Mickey Rooney says, "You must miss your children." And Lori replies, "We don't have any children." And Mickey Rooney's face just drops. And I wrote in my notes, Angelorum has no decorum. Thank you. Good night.
I was waiting for him to say something like, "What's wrong? The equipment doesn't work?" You know, because like this is that era when like the expectation was children. This wouldn't play very well today. Like we have child-free couples and whatnot, but like back then, like what's wrong with you? Did you get hit in the war? You know, like I expected, because old people have no chill and they will ask you anything.
Yeah, well, that seems to be his reaction to this news.
Yeah.
Jim still got a stick up somewhere and adds,
We both work. Not much time for family planning, right, darling?
Maybe someday. It's not too late.
But our attention turns briefly to one of the choir boys hitting the beach ball out of the pool and asking Rodrigo to go get it for him. And now we finally see Angelorum explicitly do some of his hand-waving angel magic. He waves a finger and sends the beach ball flying right into Lori's face.
Yes, shades of the football in the Brady Bunch episode. Like when I watched this, I immediately was like, "Oh my nose! This should be." I thought I remembered what happened, but I was like, it would be so much better if somehow this beach ball hit her hard enough to give her a black eye, and then Donny Osmond says, "You still look good to me," and he takes her to the prom.
That's exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's definitely a callback to that. It's gotta be. And I'll tell you what, I was typing these notes early on a Saturday morning, and this made me laugh so loudly I woke up a kid.
Can you imagine how many scripts, though, Maureen McCormick turned down throughout her career? Where it's like, and this is the scene where you get hit in the face. It's like, I'm not doing that anymore.
It's like, come on, man. This was a beach ball, so she let it slide. Beach ball I can handle.
Although it does knock over the most delicious looking drink.
It did look like a delicious looking drink. It spills all on her new cotton skirt.
Mm-hmm.
Rodrigo comes over and apologizes because as far as he knows, he threw the ball and it just whipped in the other direction. He thinks this is his fault.
This is like the only moment where this type of magic could happen, because on the upper deck of a ship, you could feel that the winds could all of a sudden go in the wrong direction. And I don't think beach balls spend a lot of time in pools on a cruise, because I feel like they would sail into the ocean way too often.
Yeah, you don't want that. Oh, yeah.
This is where the episode takes a turn, because like I was saying before, we're like, this isn't a standard Love Boat episode. Like, there's not enough crew in it. There's not enough love in it. And there's a weird dynamic that forms. There's a very like May December kind of deal between Rodrigo and Maureen McCormick. This ball situation is their meet cute.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, it is.
Like, it almost becomes a weird like love triangle with Donny Osmond or Jim or whatever. But like, this will carry on for the second half of the episode.
Yeah.
Where I'm just kind of like, what is going on here? It's 1982, but
we're gonna find out. But yeah, Lori tells him he should be more careful, and she goes to change. Jim follows her, and at this point, I'm wondering, what is Angelorum's plan here? Please tell me that's not his way to get Rodrigo adopted. Hey, this childless couple has a dual income. They can afford this sick kid's medical bills.
That they've got to like do like an international adoption. You know how hard that is?
I do. My brother and sister are from South Korea.
There you go.
I know exactly how this goes down. So we cut to that night while the ship's in port in Ensenada, and Angelorum's sitting at the dining room with Captain Steubing and Doc. Asks him how Rodrigo's doing, and Doc says, fine, slight fever, so I gave him some antibiotics. Julie then joins him wearing a lovely red dress, and the captain asks how the tree's coming along, and Julie pauses for a second before answering, well, Gopher's working on it right now, which explains why he's not at dinner with them. There is someone we haven't seen yet at dinner with them. It's the captain's daughter, Vicky.
Julie, he got it. He got the stuff.
Who? What?
Gopher. He must have bought every Christmas decoration in Ensenada.
Played by Jill Whalen, whom I remember from the movie Airplane. She played the sick girl who needed a new heart. But moving on, Doc asks Angelorum what line of work he's in, and he struggles to explain it, so he simply tells them,
Well, it's much like the work that you're all in yourselves. I deal with people, different kinds, all kinds of people, their health and their welfare, without making waves.
What?
Trafficking.
Oh, no. I mean, and that explanation is apparently fine with everyone.
Yeah, I also, you got to knock Angelorum here, because you would feel that your cover, that should be the first thing you have all set. Like
Right.
That's the one question he should be able to roll off his tongue, exactly what his fake job is, but he wasn't ready. It was like he didn't expect that to come up.
That boggles my mind. Every angel I know has a cover up, or they don't. They're just explicit with it. But
see, a lot of angels are younger. And like, he gets to play on the old person thing. Like, again, modern kind of sensibilities. I don't know if you guys have watched the new Matlock. This is not an aside. This is related. But like, the whole deal with the new Matlock is she can get answers and like she can solve cases because in today's society, the elderly are considered invisible.
Huh.
So it's like people will talk about big mergers and all this stuff around her because they just don't notice senior citizens. So it's the same thing here. He never worked on his cover story because he's never needed it. Like, whatever he says, they're just going to be like, oh, old man, that's cute. Okay, where's the tree?
Yeah, okay, Grandpa. Yeah, good point. Well, we move on to Lori and Jim at a table for two. Lori thanks her husband for this vacation. She hasn't felt this relaxed in years, and Jim seems to finally be in a better mood. Tells her it shows on her face. You're more beautiful than ever. At least I hope that's sincere. I hope he wasn't going to add you could feel like this all the time if you quit your job. But they're interrupted by Rodrigo, who apologizes again for ruining her dress and gives her a long stem rose. And she forgives him, clearly touched by the gesture, and he goes to sit back down with the choir. Yeah, this is where that starts, Will. You're right.
Jim never gave her a rose.
No, where's your rose?
Why can't you be like Rodrigo?
Oh, dear. Well, now Mr. Dobbs comes up to the table. He asks Sister Regina, hey, do you happen to have a nativity scene under your tree? And I'm kind of surprised her answer is no.
Right? It should have like pieces missing. Maybe there's an egg in the place of the donkey. But like, there's something. Maybe
it's
some
made
rocks.
out of wood. It's old. Yeah, you would think that
Right.
there. Yeah.
Like, vow of poverty, I get that, but y'all couldn't make one? Like, carve it or mold it out of clay or something? It's a convent!
Yeah.
For the plot, Mr. Dobbs invites Sister Regina to drop by his cabin in the morning and he'll have something for her. And off he goes back to his table with Henry.
Smile at the nuns, Henry. Smile. They're going to make us rich. They're going to make us rich beyond our wildest dreams.
As we go to commercial with some dramatic violins.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
They got a million toys at Toys R Us that she can play with.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid.
They got the best for so much less. You really flip your head.
Now at Toys R Us, the new E.T. cartridge, only $33.97. Help E.T. phone home with the Atari video game system for $129.84. So go to Toys R Us and have a blast.
More games, more toys, oh boy. I want to be a Toys R Us kid.
Remember that show? Hello, TV lovers. We want to know if you remember that show? The Retro Network's newest nostalgia-filled podcast that will have you flipping the channels of your memories and discovering vintage entertainment that's gotten lost in the static of years gone by. We're your hosts and we want to introduce ourselves. I'm Adam Pope.
And I'm William Bruce West. Each month on Remember That Show, we will discuss a different obscure or forgotten TV show from the 80s or 90s that we love, hate, or want to debate. We'll be reliving some of our favorite TV moments from the good old days, and occasionally cracking the lenses of our rose-colored glasses.
It's all happening here on the Retro Network. So remember, when you're looking for the best in nostalgic entertainment, you just have to ask yourself one question. Remember that show?
And when we return after those messages and after dinner, Captain Stubing announces they're setting sail for their next port of call, glorious Acapulco.
Mm-hmm.
And we find Vicky rushing over to Julie to let her know Gopher got the decorations. Says he must have bought every Christmas decoration in Ensenada, and he walks out with a whole stack of boxes of ornaments and immediately trips and falls down the stairs with them.
Ruins them all.
Ruins them all. And as soon as he walked out on top of that staircase with those boxes, I knew it was about to happen.
Yeah.
Because you remember the number song on Sesame Street with the baker?
Oh my God, this is exactly what I was going to say. Yes. I was like waiting till you were finished so I could be like, and then 10 chocolate cakes or whatever. And then
I have that written down. He's holding it the exact same way.
I know. That's and then he falls down the steps.
Oh, it's uncanny.
I believe Jim Henson was the baker, if I remember correctly. But I literally thought that, and I was like, I'll throw that in. Michael know what I'm talking about. Well, he sure did.
Oh, we hear a bunch of glass breaking as he stumbles and a lovely new soundtrack of womp, 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 womp. And then we cut to Lori and Jim out on the deck in the moonlight, holding each other like they're about to take a prom photo.
But I mean, I like this scene because I think it's important that they establish they both love each other.
Yes.
You know, they're having trouble, but they both, and I thought that I like this part.
But then, she asks, do you love me? And Jim doesn't answer right away. He continues kissing her on the neck and the back of her head. And she softly tells him, I want to hear you say it. And he does. And he means it. And then they share a kiss. But dude, those were kind of a long few seconds of you not immediately answering yes.
I thought she was baiting him because
she was.
But I thought she was about to tell him she was pregnant. And then it was going to change their whole dynamic because it was what he wanted. And we're getting to this point in the episode where we got to start wrapping it up. So it's like, well, I am with child and I'm leaving my job. And he gets what he wants. And then, like, it doesn't go that way. But that's where I thought it was going at that scene based on the, like, pacing.
On the body language, yeah. No, but Jim asks her a penny for your thoughts. And Lori says she was thinking about that little boy, Rodrigo, bringing her the flower. And Jim smiles and says, we could have our own child. Do you ever regret it? And Lori says there's plenty of time. And now Jim slides back into jerk mode with, yeah, if you're ever home long enough. Y'all were having a lovely moment.
Here we go again. Look, I've told you my work is important.
Well, so am I. And having a family.
I don't want to discuss it now. I'm going to bed. Are you coming?
No, I'm not.
Well, then stay here and pout.
I'm honestly surprised Angelorum doesn't show up during any of that.
Right. But this part is triggering for me because I'm like, well, every time he tries to talk, she goes away. It's like he's trying to talk to her about it.
But he's trying to talk to her like that. No one wants to talk to you after you talk to them like that.
It's been building. She's never around.
But we cut to later that night, and Sister Bernadette rings Doc's night bell because Rodrigo's having trouble breathing. So when he goes to help, the captain also enters. Both men are in their fashionable night robes, the height of 1982 men's sleepwear.
That looks like heavy bronchitis. I've given him something to relax.
It's serious?
It's not good. Not good at all.
We then cut to the following morning, and Jim is sitting on a couch somewhere that he's clearly slept on in his tux. Well, the jacket's on the couch, and his bow tie and his vest are undone, and that's how he spent the night.
He didn't sleep, though. He sat there sulking.
Yeah.
Like, there was no sleeping going on.
No.
But can I just say, like, can you die from bronchitis? Because they really, really ramped up the, like, tension of Rodrigo, where it's like, okay, he's not going to sing for Christmas. We get it. But he's not going to die. But you wouldn't know that from this scene.
Yeah, it's not pneumonia. I mean,
Right.
It's even bronchitis, which is, I mean, I've had bronchitis, but it seems like it's curtains for this kid.
He is an orphan in a convent that can't afford a nativity scene.
True, but there's something missing. Like, I thought maybe they were on tour to raise money to save the convent.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So him being the lead soloist, unable to perform, it puts the convent in jeopardy. But that doesn't exist. That's for like the audience to connect some dots, But like I felt like that was missing. Otherwise, like, why do we care? Little boy has bronchitis, happens all the time. Kids get sick, But like also though, when we find out it's worse, he's got like nodes and all this stuff. If I had watched this at the time, I would feel like I do right now. Like, this is stupid. He's fine. He'll be okay. But I did a cappella in college. And I don't know if you guys saw Pitch Perfect, but
sure have.
In collegiate a cappella, nodes is the worst thing that can happen to you. Like, if you find out somebody has vocal nodes, it's like a death sentence. Like, oh my God, you'll never sing again. Like, it's like, you gotta have the surgery. You may never, and if that's where you derive your joy. So I kind of got it there, but the general audience doesn't get that, and it just looks way overblown.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, his singing is apparently this kid's selling point, too. But we'll get to him later. Here, Lori comes in already dressed and gives him a cold good morning, then asks what happened last night because he never went back to their room, so she was worried all night. Jim tells her, now you know how I feel waiting for you to come home from work. And here we go. He continues, he did a lot of thinking about the two of them, and so has Lori, but Jim's going to talk first, and he comes out with it.
Lori, I am a normal, everyday husband who wants his meals on the table when he gets home. I want my wife there to be with, to talk to, and to enjoy. In short, Lori, I want a normal wedded wife, not a working partner.
Well, I think we can discuss it calmly.
Enough discussion.
A normal everyday husband, fellas.
Normal Donny Osmond couldn't have gotten that out. That was the beard talking.
That was the beard. It's evil Donny.
Evil Donny Osmond.
Oh, and his tone. I'm home before my wife, too, and you know what? It's great. I get to work on my stupid hobby, this podcast, without have to worry about keeping her up with my typing. But no, Jim wants Lori to quit her job. He wants them to have a child, and he's done discussing it. And Laurie's taken aback by the way he's basically demanding this and says maybe they should be discussing a trial separation instead. And Jim, who's already been stewing with rage the entire night, says, fine by me, you got it. Merry Christmas. And speaking of Christmas, because no one else has been for a while, Dobbs and Henry present their very lovely painted nativity scene to the sisters. Sister Bernadette picks up the Mary figurine and notes it's a lot heavier than it looks. And Dobbs says, well, they're made of cheap painted lead.
Yes, he's very clear about how cheaply made the lead is, but my goodness, the sculpting on these is beyond, I mean, the amount of hours that with no reference model either, that somehow Henry is able to just grind these out.
He pictures it in his mind. He has a gift.
I mean, you would think this is one of those occasions where you're like, maybe if you leave the life of crime, you have a skill that is marketable enough that you could make more money by not committing a crime.
Yeah. But then the sisters almost walk out with Mary, but Dobbs calls them back and explains, I'll pack up the whole set for you to bring ashore. And just as he's about to take back the Mary figurine, in swoops Angelorum to take a look at it.
I know, he just butts right in.
Don't leave your door open on a cruise ship, apparently.
Am I intruding?
Yes.
The child Rodrigo is very ill, and showing him this might give him some solace.
Oh, what a lovely thought, Mr. Dominicus. Mother Mary is his very favorite.
Sneaky little guy.
He just intrudes and he spoils everything.
So Sister Bernadette asks Henry, would that be okay? And Henry has no choice to say, of course, sister. But Henry also seems to mean that. He seems like he spent this entire cruise in over his head, has no sleep from chiseling out an entire nativity scene that looks amazing. So to see someone genuinely pleased with this work seems to make him quite happy.
Yeah, I also think that even though these are criminal masterminds that we are dealing with here, I think that they are still a little intimidated by the prospect of upsetting a nun.
Yeah, well, who among us? Well, now we're back out by the pool bar, and poor Isaac is still trying to get a hold of his mother on the phone and having no luck.
Listen, every Christmas, my mom and I, we like to talk to each other, person to person. It's kind of a thing we do.
And that's pretty much the entire Isaac plot. Because enough about that, he asks Julie and Gopher how the Christmas tree decorating is going, just as Captain Steubing marches up and asks them why the tree is still not decorated. Finally, a special where they wait until Christmas Eve to decorate the tree, but they're not happy about it.
It must be really hard being a hard-ass boss on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Just like you're grading on a curve. Like, what am I going to get upset about today? Why isn't this tree decorated?
How dare you? It's Christmas Eve. He's got a point.
We're out of mimosa materials.
The captain tells them to see that it gets done today and storms off. Well, Gopher's out of ideas, so he's finally ready to tell the captain the truth, like they should have done at the beginning. But wait, Vicky has an idea. She says it's something she used to do at school, and they all head to Julie's cabin to string popcorn and cranberries.
Yeah, they are going totally old school on the decorations, which I love.
With what looks like the same air popper my parents had in 1982. Listen, I have an air popper now. It's a newer model, but it still is shaped very much like this old one. It's great.
Hey, you don't mess with success.
No, I'll never eat microwave popcorn again. But, of course, the first shot we see is Gopher eating popcorn as he's stringing it. Maybe that's why I still don't do that to my own tree. Vicky is making a very long paper chain out of strips of red and green construction paper. Julie is cutting out snowman ornaments, and Isaac is wrapping foil into little bauble-shaped ornaments. I am excited to see this grade school arts and crafts tree in the middle of a cruise ship lobby now. It is too bad I absolutely know Angelorum is going to end up lighting it for real, but this would have been something. But back in with Rodrigo lying in bed, still wheezing, and Doc says it's getting worse, and he thinks they need to bring him up to the infirmary. And Angelorum is hanging out by the open door for some reason. Why is he there? Why is the door open? This kid's health is private. Close the door.
They didn't have HIPAA back then. International waters.
International. Even Doc asks, what are you doing here? And he explains he came to see how Rodrigo was getting along. And he sits down next to the kid and says, don't worry, we'll have you up and around in no time at all. And Doc gives him a look like, don't promise them that.
Right. We? And your role is what?
Doc does add, well, I could sure use an assistant. And Angelorum immediately goes white and says, don't look at me. I faint at the sight of blood. What kind of an angel are you? But he's sure someone on board is more qualified, and Captain Steuben gets onto the PA system and announces if there's a qualified nurse on board, please report to the doctor's office immediately. And another dramatic commercial break, after which we rejoin the captain and the two sisters waiting in the doctor's cabin when Lori knocks on the door and just lets herself in, because it turns out, you know that job that keeps her so busy she's not home enough for her dumb old husband? She's a nurse.
You're a nurse?
Head scrub nurse for Madison General.
Praise the Lord, it's another miracle, sister.
So you mean to tell me that Jim knowingly married a head nurse?
She may not have been a head nurse when they got together.
Oh, I guess so.
You know,
okay.
She worked her way. But see, that whole thing was framed interesting because I didn't understand why Captain Steuben called for a nurse. I would say medical professional for dramatic effect, because then she shows up and you're like, oh, surely she's a surgeon or a doctor. And then you find out, oh, she's the head scrub nurse. In today's society, we have travel nurses and things like that where they're constantly on the go and they're really busy. 1982, though, at that point, I'm kind of like, kind of on Team Jim at this point.
Oh, dear.
You couldn't swap some shifts? I don't know.
Yeah, you're saying, Doctor, I don't think that 1982 Love Boat audience is going to buy that Marsha Brady has become a doctor.
If anyone was going to do it in 1982, it was
Marsha Brady. Which one of them, wasn't one of them a doctor or a nurse in A Very Brady Christmas?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember.
I don't remember. I'm going to have to do that next year now. Great.
That's a good one.
All right. Anyway, Doc brings Lori to the infirmary and we get right to work. So let's check on Jim. I bet he loved hearing that PA announcement. He's at the front desk while Isaac once again tries and fails to call his mama. So they're both in a sour mood on Christmas Eve, and Jim straight up asks,
is it bad form to ask Santa for a divorce?
That sounds like a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
Starring Meredith Baxter Burton.
Dear Santa. Well, my answer to that is yes. Santa's not a lawyer.
I did find, and maybe I followed this story in a slightly different way, but I thought that this seemed out of left field. I was like, whoa. I know you guys are having a little trouble on your cruise, but now this seems a little bit, I just felt like they weren't at that place. My goodness.
More had happened. This cruise is like a last ditch effort. This is we look at it as oh, they finally got vacation, whatever. No, the resentment has been building. There's a lot riding on this cruise, and she thought she was just gonna ride it out, laying out on the deck, and he was gonna put all his cards on the table, and they had different goals, but they were not gonna return to port the same one way or another.
Will, I think you're right. And I honestly think that had she shown up on time, none of their problems would have shown up throughout the entire cruise. I feel like she showed up late and he immediately got in that sour mood, and he's still resenting and he's not going to ever be able to get over top of it during the cruise.
Right, he hasn't slept. He got the change though. I think he's in another Lacoste shirt here.
I just wish he'd said something like, I gave up singing with my sister to be with you.
Donny and Maureen. But back in the doctor's cabin, the two sisters, Julie, Gopher, and Angelorum, are all waiting when Doc comes out in his scrubs and says, "Merry Christmas, everyone. He's gonna be fine." Doc tells the sisters they should go get some sleep, so they leave. As Dobbs and Henry walk in for an update, but really they just want to get their Mary figurine back. And there she is, sitting on the coffee table, but before Dobbs can reach for it, Gopher picks it up and excitedly says,
Look at this! Julie, this would make a great decoration for a Christmas tree.
Oh, Gopher, that's so much nicer than anything we have. Do you think anybody'd mind?
I'm sure they wouldn't.
Great. Oh, wonderful.
So Doc thanks Lori again for volunteering, and she goes to lie down for a bit. Then the captain enters and asks for an update. Doc tells him he found quite a lot of things wrong with Rodrigo's throat. He may be better, but Doc admits he'll be lucky if he'll ever be able to talk again, let alone sing. We then cut to the lobby where Julie and Gopher are finally decorating the tree, and it actually looks okay with these grade school decorations. I'm impressed.
You can't fight the classics. That's why our kids still make them to this day.
That's right, and we put them on every single year. Dobbs and Henry watch as Vicky attempts to hang Mary on the tree, but it immediately drops because it's too heavy. Tries a second time, and it stays up, albeit limp. But Vicky sees her dad coming, and Julie, Gopher, and Isaac nervously decide they need to stall the captain before he can see the tree while they're still decorating it. Dobbs and Henry are kind of watching from a corner of the room and wait till they're gone. And then Dobbs tells Henry to go get Mary off the tree, and he does, and they go up to the elevator before anyone can see them. At least that's what they think. What they didn't see was Angelorum watching the whole thing, and after everyone else has left the lobby, he sneaks in and finally waves his finger at the tree. But we don't immediately see the transformation. We just see Mickey Rooney's ecstatic face surrounded by a swirl of lights.
He could have been just like spray painting Angelorum was here. We don't know.
But then I guess the attempt to stall the captain has failed because in he walks to take a look, and the tree does indeed look amazing. We then move on to Christmas Eve dinner in a packed dining room. The boys' choir, Lori and Jim, are all seated at the captain's table with the staff, and Angelorum for some reason, because he's a guest star, that's why. But now Rodrigo is out of surgery to join them as well, and the whole dining room applauds as he enters. He gets to sit right next to Lori, but Jim's on the other side of him yapping some Christmas. I hardly got to see you. And I'm ready to be like, oh, I'm sorry. Should she not have gone to save the child's life?
He wasn't gonna die. That's what I want Jim to be like. It was bronchitis.
But apparently, he didn't even know that. Doc's the one who tells Jim, hey, your wife's awesome. She helped save Rodrigo's life. And boy, does his mood change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the only thing stopping Lori from getting up and leaving right then and there is because it's Christmas Eve and they're all stuck on a boat. But the captain asks if Sister Regina wants to say grace before they eat, and she says it'll be an honor if he did it. So Captain Steubing gives us a fine Christmas Eve blessing.
I can think of no better place to be this Christmas Eve than with the children. Your children. You have watched over one who needed your help more than the others, and for that we are grateful. We are also grateful for the bounty and love you have given us. And so we give thanks for the joy and happiness in our hearts this wonderful Christmas day.
And then we cut to Christmas morning as we arrive in Acapulco. The sisters invite the crew to the convent that night for their Christmas service, and then Dobbs and Henry give them their nativity scene all packed up in a very heavy suitcase that requires both ladies to carry it. And then we see Isaac looking very bummed by the phone, but Angelorum stops by to tell him don't give up hope.
Remember this, Isaac, that all of the rivers in the world that run into the ocean, and yet it still doesn't overflow.
The heck it doesn't. Have you not been paying attention to the sea levels rising? It's 1982. No one's been paying attention yet. Whatever. He's talking about hope, and then he tells Isaac, better pick up the phone. Why? It's not ringing. Then it rings. And sure enough, it's his mom. And Ted Lange has the biggest and best grin on his face here.
I wonder how Angelorum did this magic. Did he wave his finger all the way to Oakland, or is this like not really his mom? Is this just some kind of mirage that he's putting on over the phone to make him feel like he talked to mom?
If Ryan Murphy would be behind this show, we find out that Isaac's mom died like weeks ago, which is why he couldn't contact her. So it is a mask.
It's the sea madness getting to him.
He ate some bad shrimp.
Well, now we're at the customs desk. We're disembarking in Mexico, so everybody's got to go through here first.
That's a real top-notch affair. It's a folding table with 2 cars. Didn't look very official.
It's 1982 on a cruise ship. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's not much different.
Okay.
There are guys there with big guns, though. But other than that, it's still a folding table.
The customs table is also the name tag table from like when you first got on the boat. You know, it's like repurposed.
Sure. They're not going to put 2 tables on there.
Because clearly they can't store Christmas decorations. Where are they going to put on these tables?
Yeah.
But they let the sisters pass right on through with their suitcase while Dobbs and Henry get their bags checked. And then we cut to the Convent of the Good Shepherd. We know it's called that because we zoom in really close to the sign. And the crew have stopped by as they promised. Well, almost the whole crew. Laurie's also there, notably without Jim. But the sisters ask,
Where's the captain? What's that now?
Yeah, I love this. This is one of those holiday tropes that I love is always the lead actor or the big star of the show always gets to don the Santa outfit. And boy, it's cool to see this.
I love the gifts because this is just like content for bloggers. Like, freeze the frame. This is everything that was in the Love Boat's Christmas episode too.
Yeah.
I saw some 1982 memory and some, like,
stadium checkers. I saw stadium checkers.
Exactly.
And there was I believe a toy like model kit for a honcho truck. If I could tell,
I saw the truck kit. Yeah,
but yeah, there was definitely a truck kit. So,
and while that's going on, here come Dobbs and Henry sneaking in through a back door to steal back their golden nativity scene, which is front and center on the altar. And as Dobb walks up to it, guess who's there to welcome them?
Mickey.
Yeah.
Good old Mickey Rooney.
This is his best scene, though. He's gonna fix everything.
Yes, he does. He motions toward the kids, all circled around Santa.
Beautiful, isn't it? The laughter of little children, the perfect aura for the birth of the Christ child. And your generous gift will not go unnoticed.
It was nothing. Love those kids.
Anything for the kids, Charlie.
Dobbs has no choice but to nod and say, it was nothing. Love those kids. And then Angelorum walks away. And after he does, Dobbs also leaves the room, but tells Henry, don't go away. So now it's time for the boys' choir to sing for everyone. Angelorum offers to conduct, and Sister Bernadette fills in for Rodrigo as they sing Adeste Fidelis. That's Latin for O Come All Ye Faithful for the unfamiliar, who don't have that particular Bing Crosby record. Followed by Silent Night, and Rodrigo looks a tiny bit sad as he watches from the audience next to Laurie. But then, halfway through the first verse of Silent Night, Angelorum stops conducting and motions for Rodrigo to stand up and sing with them. Then he gives a quick glance upwards before he does the little finger wave at Rodrigo, who begins to sing. But they skipped the third verse of Silent Night instead of finishing the first one. I don't know if y'all noticed, but who cares? It's a Christmas miracle.
This is and throwback to the Brady Bunch. This is like Mrs. Brady getting her voice for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't even put that together. You're right.
We also have to talk about that Rodrigo, like Lori was holding Rodrigo's hand, looking the hottest Maureen McCormick has ever looked. So it's like this 12-year-old boy is like, so what if I can't sing? Look at this. Merry Christmas, everyone.
I'm holding Marsha Brady's hand. This is the best Christmas ever. And Rodrigo gets up and joins the choir as they all continue singing together. And that's when Dobbs comes back with a duffel bag and he and Henry begin loading it up with the nativity scene. But Angelorum's watching them. He says nothing, continues conducting the choir, but still manages to point his magic fingers at Henry and Dobbs, who both stop and reverse it, taking the figurines back out of the duffel bag and onto the table again. And with another wave of his finger, it's like we see Dobbs's heart grow 3 sizes because he just stops, looks at the choir, and slowly starts to smile.
It's a Christmas miracle. I love
Christmas miracle. Why'd he wait that long? I guess he had to be in a church. Well, that wraps up that story, I guess. What's left? Oh, yeah, this guy. Here comes Jim. Sitting down next to Lori and simply asks,
"Back together?"
And she nods and takes his hand, and he tells her he loves her. Okay, fine. I hope seeing how she helped save Rodrigo and him singing miraculously convinces him her work is important and also that she's a grown woman who can make her own decisions.
There was a scene cut out where he's like, but come on, it was bronchitis.
No, Rodrigo melted his icy heart. And as he continues singing, Angelorum walks over, takes a closer look at the nativity scene, looks around nervous for a second before giving one final finger wave and removing the paint to reveal its golden splendor. I don't know about you, but I thought it looked better with the paint.
It did.
Yeah, but we're now revealing that it's valuable.
Yes. Then Angelorum walks outside, looks up in the sky at one star shining a little more brightly than the others and says, "Thank you, I thought things went quite well too." And I'm thinking, okay, that's the end of the episode, right? Nope, there's more.
Yes, indeed, there is.
Captain Steubing joins Angelorum outside and says,
"Remarkable Christmas, wasn't it?
Yes.
Is everything turning out so fine? Almost miraculous."
Oh, he knows what's up.
Yes. So he sort of sees what's happening but we can't wrap it up this way. This would not be a good ending to you couldn't possibly leave these ill-gotten gains with this foster home, this orphanage.
No, well, first, the captain simply gives Angelorum a little chuckle as Angelorum says he's got to go now. His planet needs him. Promises the captain he'll see him again. You just need to know where to look for him. Walks off camera as the captain wishes him a Merry Christmas, and we follow Captain Steubing's eyes as they turn upward. Did he just watch Angelorum take off to the heavens like Superman?
And I'm a policy guy, so I'm like, he's on the ship's manifest. What happens when they get back to port and he's not on there?
Yeah, well, I mean,
like,
finger
it's
waves
a round trip.
on his way back up. Oh, his name's not on there.
Right. But yeah, Captain Steubing, like, okay, the Love Boat is magical. We've accepted that, but there's certain kinds of magic that are like on the Love Boat. So I'm kind of a little worried for Captain Steubing that there was no skepticism whatsoever.
Not even a little.
Like, I need skepticism and then acceptance, not just automatic all-in acceptance. I worried for the crew and the passengers after that scene.
That's why we see him, like, his eyes turn upward. That's Angelorum takes off like a rocket, apparently. They didn't want to add that to the episode's budget.
I mean, you feel like you would have gotten him going, no, couldn't be.
That's what it should have been. That's what this whole thing should have been.
Because Gavin McLeod has a really good, like, bewildered face, too. Like,
He
we've
does.
seen it a lot. So the
Yeah.
fact that they didn't use it there, it was very strange.
Yeah.
But the tone's even crazier as we move on.
Yeah, well, now it looks like we're back stateside at the Pacific Princess's home port as it disembarks. Dobbs and Henry are among the first off to say goodbye to the captain and tells him the cruise changed their lives. And Henry outright says,
Even though things didn't go as planned, I'm glad the convent got the gold.
"Oh, everyone knows what's up now?" Well, anyway, the captain informs them the convent isn't keeping the gold. It's been sent back to the bank, and a pair of cops with old-timey hats arrive to accompany Dobbs and Henry off the ship. And that brings us to our next group to say goodbye, Lori and Jim. And Rodrigo.
We also do find out that the convent, the orphanage, does get the reward.
Yes, they do. Yep. And if you didn't see this coming from a mile away, surprise, they're adopting Rodrigo.
I didn't see this coming from a mile away at all.
I did, but maybe it's because of my own family situation.
Because if I were Jim, okay, they have reconciled, they still have issues. A kid is not going to solve your issues. But also, Jim being who he is, he was looking forward to the process of making a kid.
Yeah.
And the angel is like, surprise, here's a teenager. Nobody wants that. Here is a full grown, you don't go through the
Yeah,
the fun
no, you don't
part.
get a baby. That part's tough. That part's tough. But then Lori says Angelorum told them people without children are the real orphans. Whoa there, that's not the message I thought you were trying to convey.
Right.
But Isaac does ask, even if both parents are working, and Jim replies, especially in this case. I mean, I guess it's still the early 80s, and working wives were still considered a radical new thing, even though it's neither.
But I was more offended by the laissez-faire attitude to taking on Rodrigo, where it was like, yeah, we're gonna give it a try. Like they're fostering a puppy, and they're like, if it works out, we'll make it permanent. It was very loose. It's very loosey-goosey. Like, hey, look what we brought back from Mexico. Like, what kind of paperwork did they fill out?
It's his voice. It's enchanting. They couldn't say no.
I did almost expect them to be like, we've adopted him. We're buying a new house. He's going to go on tour with Menudo. I mean, I felt like we were going to get the big wrap up, and instead we get we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, yeah.
You at home will never know if this works out or not.
No.
Maybe he'll play soccer at the park. We don't know.
But as the final passengers leave, Gopher remarks to Julie he can't believe what a great job she did on the tree. And of course, Julie replies, wait, I thought you did it. And in a completely unrelated matter, Vicky asks her dad, hey, what happened to Mr. Dominicus? He just disappeared back at the convent.
Okay. Go on.
And the captain explains he saw him before he left. He asked the captain to say goodbye to the crew, and Angelorum also said he'd always be around if he knew where to look for him. Most of the rest of the crew don't get it, but Vicky's attention turns to the top of the tree.
Right. Now, let me just say, this moment is why I told you we had to do this episode.
Because the little angel topper, complete with halo and wings, is dressed in a tiny red and green plaid blazer just like Angelorum's, which then changes to Mickey Rooney's face and he winks at them. And that's the end of the episode.
And that effect cost them about $100,000.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Let me tell you. So the first time I watched this, I'm like, oh, this is good. And every part of it, I'm like, they're checking off all the boxes I like in a Christmas special. And it gets to the end, And then we see Mickey Rooney on the top of the tree. And I was like, what the heck am I watching? I was like, I checked my blood pressure just to make sure I wasn't dying. Like, this was so bizarre. I mean, it is such a, like, the show is going in one direction on one path, and then it just veers into outer space at this one moment.
It's like an SNL sketch that doesn't know how to
It
end.
does look like it ends like an SNL sketch.
You know, it's just like, well, that's it.
Oh,
Time for commercial.
Mickey Rooney as Bill Brasky.
Oh, it's the best. It's wonderful.
Oh.
There's not enough love. I thought Dobbs was going to get with the sister. Now, yes, it's complicated because she belongs to God, but like maybe she'd leave the convent. It's not a very successful convent.
No.
The crew was the only audience in the concert.
Hey,
so it's like maybe she leaves and goes off with Dobbs. He charmed her by saying they were both Irish from the same, like.
Right, because they both had that Irish accent.
There's no love except for the fleeting love of Lori and Jim. And it's like they love each other, but it's up there and they got to grasp it. But we don't get our like triple couples that we typically get in a Love Boat episode.
No, that's true.
And it's just like even theirs is like salvaged love. No one falls in love here.
I have a better ending for them. What if she said, I was talking to the sisters and they could use a nurse here, and then I'd have plenty of time to spend with you and we could live here at this orphanage with all the kids. And then he'd be like, I think that'd be perfect.
In Acapulco.
I think that should have been the end.
I wouldn't complain. It would be just as crazy as what we got. Well, maybe not just as crazy as this end part, but
he'd be like, but I have to quit my job of putting orphanages out of business.
We never do find out what he does. It never mattered.
He's an anti-nurse, which is some of the cons.
Any final thoughts on the Christmas presents or on the Love Boat in general?
I mean, I feel like we've said it all.
Yeah.
But I will absolutely recommend people seek this episode out. If you have, it is a good one. If you're wrapping gifts or something where you don't want to give it 100% of your attention because you're doing something else, this is a great background show.
It's a great Christmas special with a familiar cast of guest stars. It is not indicative of the standard Love Boat episode, so don't let it be your first.
Whoops.
But if you're familiar with the Love Boat, you have no issues with it.
Okay. Well, it was my first, but the Christmas bits of these were very charming. You even had a couple of villains, one of whom was finally able to do the right thing in the end. Mickey Rooney as a lovable, goofy angel, albeit a pest. I thought this whole thing was delightful, even in spite of that, even in spite of Donny Osmond being evil Donny Osmond. But he knocked it out of the park. They all did. I definitely recommend screening this one for something different. It's a wacky little time. But thank you both for sailing with me on this Christmas cruise.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. Anytime I can talk about Christmas with you, Mike, is just great.
Thank you so much. And if people want to smuggle golden disguises as a nativity scene across the border into your luggage, where can they find you on the internet, Will?
That's a good question. I'm on social media at William B. West everywhere. I have a website, westweekever.com. It's about pop culture stuff. I do a weekly post where we look at the week that was in pop culture. And I do a podcast with Adam Pope, who's also been on the show here. It's called Remember That Show, where we take a look at possibly forgotten TV shows of the 80s and 90s. We just kicked off year 2 of that, and we're in the midst of, just having a lot of fun over there. So check that out wherever fine podcasts are free.
And Guy.
Well, the place I want you to try to find me is on your show. Go back through some of the archives because I've had so much fun chatting with you about Christmas stuff. If they want to find me elsewhere, I do a show on YouTube called Pointless Nostalgia. And I recently talked about something that kind of relates to this, which is the Brady Bunch did an episode where they went to Hawaii, and so did every other show in the 70s. So recently it was, Sanford and Son went there, the Jeffersons. And so if you like stuff like that, go check me out and drop a comment. Say that you heard me on here. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yes, please check out all of those things. You can find those links in the show notes of this episode. You can find me at adventcalendar.house, and you can find your way around from there. Tune in next time when we travel aboard another sort of ship on a much longer journey. Until then, for Will and Guy, from the bottom of a staircase I just fell down and miraculously didn't get ripped to shreds by broken glass ornaments, this is Mike Westfall saying thanks for sailing with us, and please mind the icy patch on your way to shore. Good night, y'all. Next time on the Advent Calendar House.
This is the story of the very first alien Christmas.
This is Earth. We will build the ultimate weapon, and their stuff will be our stuff.